alive! It's alive! It's alive!
I want to play a game.
Hello and welcome to the Sounds from the Grave podcast. My name is Yusuf.
And my name is Vanya.
And remember, sometimes dead is better.
Oh, absolutely. I'd much rather be dead, especially after this year of 2020.
Yeah.
What better year of this horrible year, but at the same time, is one of the best years that we have to realize ourselves and, connect with our inner horror selves and become really creative during this Halloween season. As we strive away from the Halloween Horror Nights content, now we're going into the very horror genre, of which is, I think this is one of our first, correct?
Yeah, I think it's like our first official non-Horror Nights related episode.
Yes, and so today we are going to give you guys a couple of true stories that have inspired some of the best classic horror films out there, and it is your job as the listener to guess what they are.
Yes, I think we're going to have a lot of fun with this one. The research for this was a lot of fun, I can tell you that much. I learned quite a bit. I was freaked out for some of this, quite a bit. So, I had fun.
So, what very interesting fact, Yusef here, thought it
Yeah.
was a great idea. That, I'm going into this very blindsided. I have not seen the rest of this document. And I'm very worried about this, what I'm about to read. But he did say not to read the second half because we are reviewing two movies, which is why I say couple, because there is a lot of factual things behind all of these movies. I kind of knew a couple of the factual stuff due to, if you guys haven't watched the Cursed Films documentary on Shudder, then I definitely recommend that you guys do that. But a lot of these facts are sometimes are very known into the that documentary if you guys are not members of Shudder as well. So those things are being talked about of why is it cursed and the history and the nature of the horror films. But I'm going into this movie very blindsided. And this is more concentrated on actual real life events that have inspired these movies.
Yeah, and then the reason I didn't want you to read about the second half is because it gets really, really dark, and I kind of wanted to get your first reactions to it as I was explaining what was going on.
Yeah, so I'm kind of not looking forward to it. But I mean, not looking forward to it in the sense that not that I don't hate surprises, because I actually really love surprises. It's just the fact that the shock factor. I know when I get a really big shock factor and I find out about something, like I will just lay on it and talk about it for hours and hours. And I'm gonna try not to do that, especially since this is a podcast. But we are going to do my best, and I'm not going to do that. So, um, yeah, so that's what we're striving for. That is the goal for you guys to figure it out while we talk about it. If you guys knew some of these facts, well, you are a horror expert. For me, I knew a lot. I know a lot of the facts of the horror things, but sometimes you just add on to the facts, and then it has that shock factor that you're just like, damn, like. Sometimes you wish some of the real life things actually happened in the film that would make it 10 times scary.
Oh yeah, for sure. But at the same time, it's like, yeesh, I can't believe this stuff actually happened.
Yeah, he is only chosen into God's or Satan's nature or whatever creature you worship. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so we are going to talk about the first movie or influential movie, as you want to say. We're going to talk about a boy named Roland Doe. He did not want his actual name displayed because due to his privacy, but so his family didn't have to also like deal with the publicity of it all. It's kind of very similar to the Amity horror. Basically, can't stay away from the horror fans that we all just want to admire something that has been premiered in the I think, what movie was it? Was it like The Haunting in Connecticut? I think they showed a little bit of that in the beginning of that movie.
Yeah, I think
And
so.
then Amityville Horror, and then there was just like a couple of other films based on, those murders that we all know of the DeFeos family.
Hmm.
But Roland was born in 1935 in Maryland and was born the only child. I can relate. I am an only child.
I sure can't.
Um, oh, I know you have a brother. I
Younger
feel
brother, yep.
so sorry for you, but I am the only child. But he lived with his mother, father, and maternal grandmother, and he enjoyed visits from his auntie Hattie. Roland had a love for board games, and his aunt knew this, so she brought him a Ouija board.
Yeah, I guess that's what you
Motherfucker!
do. That's what you do when when your kid likes Monopoly. You're like, you gotta move up, kid. It's time for the real deal.
Like it's like, oh, you're a loner. That's fine. We can get you some new ones from the spiritual world.
How's that for a
That's
boardwalk?
fine. Ah, fuck. It's just the fact that it's like, oh, you don't have any siblings. I can fix that. Um. So I mean, I made up some games by myself, especially growing up. But come on, a Ouija board. I think the Ouija board is something that I would never mess with. That's just me personally.
And of
I know
course, me
that.
being me, the first thing I would do is go out and buy a Ouija board and mess with it.
No, please. If you're gonna mess with a Ouija board, don't just leave me out of this, or at least if you want to invite some people, at least have the consent, and also always say goodbye to the board, because or else
Yes, that is true.
there's some shit that goes down.
Otherwise, you
Anyway.
invite some stuff.
So Auntie Hattie was a spiritualist from St. Louis and spent most of her time communicating with spirits of the deceased, and passed down a lot of her techniques to Roland. Yes, you definitely want to teach a child how to communicate with the deceased and
Yeah.
spirits. I love that. Um, so that is definitely something like it's just very interesting to
Hmm.
me that she wasn't like a preacher or priestess or any of that story. It was just like she's very spiritual. I know that there's some people who are also very spiritual as well, and they have their practices, but like, come on, a child. Like, how old was Roland anyway? How old are you? Um, so yeah, so on January 15th, 1949, Roland was in the house with his grandmother when they both heard dripping sounds coming from her bedroom. Whose bedroom was it?
From his
The
grandmother's.
aunt?
No, from his
Oh,
grandmother's.
from his grandmother's.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I mean, at first I'm sure they probably tried to explain that as like, oh, maybe it could be like faulty piping in the house or something like that, because that's what they always try to explain it as.
I mean, those houses are very rustic, and you hear some stuff.
Yeah.
I still hear stuff when I even arrive to work first thing in the morning. So, like, that's just me on a daily. That's going to be me tomorrow, but. So, as they attempted to figure out the source of the noise, a painting the family had of Jesus began to shake.
Jesus was afraid.
Oh, he was shook. I'm going
Boy
to
was
hell.
shook.
Sorry. Wait, I'm going to hell. Sorry. Wait, sorry. Sorry, Jesus, whatever. But, like. I'm sorry. I really shouldn't be spiritual, but these are just some things that it makes me laugh because it's like Jesus was shooketh. It's like I'm going to
And the
hell.
looked
That's
Lord
it.
upon his son and realized his son was shooketh.
So the events continued when Roland's parents came home, and they also began hearing scratching noises like nails on wood. I mean,
That would honestly
that's some
terrify
freaky
me.
like spirit sex. It's just very
Spirit
freaky.
sex. Wait, what?
Yeah,
Whoa.
it's just very freaky spirit sex. Just
Maybe that's where
instead of
ectoplasm comes from.
stop. You're the worst, and I thought I had a bad sense of humor. God, what's wrong with her? Anyway, with you, what's wrong with her? What's wrong with you? What's wrong with anybody? Anyway, a week later, Aunt Hattie had died unexpectedly, and Roland took his Ouija board to try and communicate with her. That's a smart move, kid. Let's try to
Yeah.
contact the aunt through a Ouija board that she gave you, and you know that there's like 20 million like spirits attached to this house or whatever spirit entity that you were trying to contact. What's wrong with you? Like, so Roland's family was not very concerned with Roland's new hobby. They were instead relieved that scratching sounds had stopped. So, but I mean, she was already alive and she had passed away, and I guess, um,
Yeah.
like that's just a little bit concerning that, it's not like something that it has happened even before or after. It's more
hmm
like there was a spirit that was doing that because it was aggravated. I guess the spirit just needed a friend.
Yeah. I
You
mean, it's
got a
again, it's one of
friend
those
in me.
things. Listen, let's not start with that now.
I mean, that shit's my worst nightmare too, but you can't at me at this shit, so whatever.
I think too, like it's like one of those things similar to the dripping where they try to explain it away, like, oh, it's like maybe we had like a mouse or something, and it was just making
Yeah.
that kind of noise. So
It became apparent that the noises did not stop, but instead changed form as Roland began to hear sounds as he was preparing for bed. I
ooh,
mean, to be fair, as a kid, I mean, you hallucinate some shit, when
I
you're
mean,
about to
hey,
like.
depends on the sounds, okay? He could have been right next to his parents' room. You never know.
But like, if you're ever a kid that was kind of like me, that you just kind of, you thought you heard stuff before going
Oh
to
yeah, that was
bed.
me all the time as a kid too.
I was like, you were trying to justify it with dumb stuff, and
Yeah.
at the same time, you already knew that there was some kind of spirit living in your house, and you were trying to justify stuff. And the fact that he was fine with this, or as what I read so far, but like I said, I am going through this blindsided, so this is gonna be a fun time. So at first, it sounded like a squeaky shoes walking on the wood floor, but eventually evolved into the sound of stomping feet. I mean, like, have you ever had those adults that just stomp around the house and
Yeah, like
they're just
yeesh.
loud as fuck? And I'm like, yo, stop! Like, I'm trying to fucking go to bed. Like, like I hate that shit. But it's just about that there's some like spirits like, hey, I'm here, hi, like,
What's up?
did you forget about me? Like, I'm just saying, like, my presence is still here.
Yeah.
So his mother and grandmother had heard, and all three gathered in his room and called out to Hattie. Yeah, that's something you do. Call out to
Yeah.
the aunt while you guys are experiencing some weird shit. Like, is that something that Hattie would have done?
It's
Just
like
stomp
Hattie,
around the
just like
house?
yeah, it's like Hattie, stop walking so loud. Calm down.
Yeah, like, this isn't a Hispanic household. It doesn't work like that. It's terrible. They asked Hattie to knock 3 times. If she understood, and they felt 3 waves of pressure as the floor thudded, and
Ooh.
they then asked her to do it again, and this time with 4 knocks, and again with the same result. I
Ee. I don't
mean,
know. I
four
don't. I don't like
knocks,
that kind of stuff.
4 knocks. Like, at that point, like, 4 knocks is just like, at that point it's just whatever, like, at that point you already know, like, this is not Hattie we're talking to. We're talking about some other bitch.
Mm-hmm.
Or we probably missed the third knock. I don't know. Like,
Well,
it,
no, no, no.
it's
What they're saying is that like they asked her one time to do it three. To like the first time they asked her, they were like, "Can you knock 3 times?" And she's like, "Boom, boom, boom." And then they're like, "Okay." So she understood us. Can you do it again? But this time can you do 4 knocks? And she was like, "Boom, boom, boom, boom." So they were like, "Oh,
uh,
okay. She is understanding what we're saying."
wow. But
Yeah.
that could be anybody.
Exactly.
So you know manipulation.
Oh yeah.
So yeah. They then heard a scratching sound coming from the mattress, and covers began to shake violently as the
Whoa, what was
mattress
going on
sounds
in that room?
gross. The mattress sounds persistent. for 3 weeks. I mean, that's some freaky ghost sex.
Woof.
That ghost, baby, freaky ghost man. Busted makes me feel good. Copyright. Anyway, well, it's not a copyright, but somebody actually made that actually like the song. They switched
Yeah.
it up a little bit. If you guys haven't heard "Bustin'" on YouTube, look it up. You won't regret it. And for those who are like less than 18 years old, don't look it up. You're not of age yet. Anyway, at one point during school, Roland's desk began to slide around, causing havoc in the classroom.
Which is weird because it always when I was reading about that in the research, it reminded me of that scene in Hereditary where like the kid like kind of freezes and then he smacks his head against his desk.
Yeah.
Like, that was creepy. I was like, no.
I
No,
mean,
no, no.
honestly, like Hereditary is kind of like the new Exorcist of this generation. It's
It
kind
kind
of
of
fucked up.
is, yeah. Where like it's kind of a slow burn, but when like the shit goes down, it goes down.
Yeah. So at the Doe residence, more occurrences kept happening. Items flew across the room, books fell to the floor, and Roland's clothes were found strewn around the kitchen.
That kid
I
was
mean,
messy.
Yeah, I mean, very messy child, very disturbing. It sounds like, he was having, like, is there such thing as auntie issues? What? Like,
Yeah, I don't know. It could be a thing.
yeah, so Roland denied responsibility for these events, and his family were compelled to believe him. I mean, y'all were hearing some shit in the house. Like, how could you
Yeah.
not believe him? Like,
Well, I mean,
are
like the
you really
close
gonna believe
thing.
it all on some fucking kid? Like,
Yeah.
what are you? And mind you, like, this was when? Like, is there a year on this?
1949.
1949. This is a 1949. You really think? You really think? Anyway, especially during the occurrence where Roland was sitting in a heavy armchair lifted into the air and flipped over, knocking him to the ground.
Yeah, that sounds like a fun time, right?
That's the attraction that, you wish you could experience. Is this Falcon Fury? Sorry, Busch Gardens, sorry. But his parents decided to consult with a general physician, a psychiatrist, and then a psychologist, but the doctors found nothing out of the ordinary with the boy. Then they approached their Lutheran minister, Reverend Schultz. Is
Schultz, I
that
think. I think it's
Schultz?
Schultz. I think. I'm not sure. I think with like those
If
SCH
it's
sounds, I think it's Schultz.
when it starts with the SCH, I promise I'm not trying to sound uncultured. It's just like it sounds very German to me, like Schultz. But like if it's Schultz, that's cool.
Yeah.
I guess I'm just used to like if it has like those fancy names, it just makes me make it German because it sounds so like rough and like whatever.
Severe.
Severe, exactly. And suggested that Hattie might be the cause of the disturbances. The minister witnessed several disturbances, including the moving furniture, the vibrating beds, and he still suspected that Roland might be pranking his family. Gross! What the fuck? You think a whatever? I don't even know how old Roland is in this description, but
I think he's
holy
supposed to
crap.
be, if I'm not mistaken, I think he was like 13 or 14 when this stuff was going
13,
on.
you expect a 13-year-old boy to be making all that? Oh, yes, let me create some entrepreneurship in this bitch and, like, let
Yeah,
me just
it's like, let
move
me
shit
make
around.
that
Like,
kid, no, he made the first vibrating bed. That was like his claim to fame.
God. That's like,
The ones
yes.
from like the really seedy motels,
Yeah. Bustin' makes me feel good. Okay. One night, the family heard screams coming from Roland's bedroom, but they ran in to investigate. A heavy dresser slid across the floor and blocked their way. So basically, they
That's
couldn't.
creepy.
So you really think a 14-year-old boy has all that energy to put a whole ass dresser in front of their door
Yeah,
just to try and get in? Like, come on now, like.
yeah,
Like,
that's a bit like, yeah, it's kind of hard to believe that a 14-year-old kid would have the strength to move like a dresser that that's that heavy because dresses for themselves are kind of heavy. You know.
Exactly. And
So
especially like don't do drugs, kids, unless it'll give you like temporary like, you know, strength for you to lift stuff around and make your parents believe that there's a ghost haunting you.
yeah.
You know, great stuff. So Reverend Schultz recommended prayer and attending Sunday communion. Oh, yeah, like that's always a good idea. Just to aggravate the spirits more. So the minister then invited Roland into his home for a change of scenery and to give his parents a break. I mean, don't you think they needed the break a long time ago, but go
Yeah.
off? So Roland and the minister retired to separate beds in the same room. I mean,
Mm. Bum, chicka, wow, wow.
trying to not say. Okay, but like this sounds like
Anyway,
the very stereotypical. This very sounds like a very stereotypical like church reverend or minister and or pastor like pedo assault type thing. By the way,
yeah.
disclaimer. Sorry, but like that's like why would you sleep in separate beds in the same room? Like that's trouble to be called for. And I mean, back in the day, in the 1950s was a different time,
Yeah,
which
it's true.
definitely is
Things were a little bit more innocent,
exactly
or so we thought, but
or so we thought. I don't know what actually happened, or he might have gotten to trauma. We don't even know. But this is the story that is revolved around that story and or movie. What was inspired after you guys figure it out. But at around midnight, Schultz stirred and witnessed Roland's bed moving, even though the boy was awake and lying still. I mean, was he not aware that he was rotating in weird ways, or
I
like,
don't think it's rotating. I think it's just like bed kind of shaking or something.
yeah? So I don't want,
Yeah, because I can imagine like seeing like a bed floating around, and I'll be like, "Fuck this shit," and just run.
Yeah, but nonchalant things in 1950s. Schultz led the distraught Roland to the kitchen and gave him some hot chocolate. Wow, what a privileged ass kid. Like, in the middle of the night to get some hot chocolate? Like, boy, give me
Man,
some.
he wasn't
And
feeling
what
good.
separate
He
bed
was
do I have to
scared.
sleep in tonight? No, I'm kidding. This is terrible. Sorry, guys. I have a really dark sense of humor, and I just really like chocolate. Okay, like I'm a
It's like
girl. Let me live.
I'm over
Please, I'm
here
so
like,
sorry. I really don't mean to be insensitive. Now I feel bad about it.
you
Honestly.
know, not I'm
Fuck.
even worse about it. Cause I'm over here like, which priest do I have to sleep next to get a hot chocolate in the middle of the night?
See, this is the person you don't want to be hanging around with.
I'm the bad influence.
Yeah, he really is. Anyway, when they returned to the bedroom, Schultz directed Roland to a comfortable bed and kept the light on. I mean, come on. Like, that's what every kid does. You're
It's
scared of
comforting.
something? Put the light on.
And sit on the lazy boy.
You're lazy, you don't want to turn on the light.
No, I
You're
said
just gonna let the little demons in the dark just get you from
no,
under your bed.
no. I'm saying he kept the light on and sat on the lazy boy. The lazy boy's a type of chair. It's like the reclining
Oh.
chairs.
That sounded wrong, honestly. Or if you're calling yourself a lazy boy, you're not helping your case in any
No, it's a
more.
they even have a store, like a straight up store called Lazy Boy.
Oh, rooms to go for me. Sorry. Then Reverend watched this chair slowly rise and tip over, dropping Roland to the ground. Oh,
That poor
that's
kid cannot
fine.
that poor kid just can't sit in a chair. Every time he tries to sit on a chair, it just tips over and he falls.
Anything that's furniture, just don't sit on it.
just don't give it. Just let Roland sleep on
Your
the floor.
best friend is the floor. So at 3 in the morning, the Reverend woke again. And this time, seeing Roland and the blanket sliding across the floor underneath the bed. Ooh, this nobody
We're
can
getting
catch
them
a break.
spooky vibes.
Yeah, just see this random ghost. Obviously, you don't see the ghost grabbing Roland by the ankles and just dragging him across underneath the bed. Like, hi, just developing a new hobby called sliding. Or sliding
Yeah.
into those DMs. I guess this is where the term comes from now.
Oh my god.
But
I think this is also where the term ghosted came from.
Oh, I'm going ghost, going Danny Phantom on this shit. Whoosh. I'm terrible, guys. Don't hang out with me. I mean, I have a terrible sense of humor, but for the most part, I think I'm a pretty entertaining person. Just, I'm kind of nervous in front of the microphone half the time. So, facts. Anyway, the Reverend told him to stop, but Roland said that he wasn't doing anything. Sound familiar? Yet, if that hasn't dropped any hints of what this movie is, then I will continue. Under the bed, Roland struck himself repeatedly against the springs of his mattress, and he was finally able to pull his face that was covered in cuts and scratches, and he was in a catatonic state.
Which is terrifying
So
too. Like, could you
basically,
imagine, like, you pull this kid out of the, from underneath the bed, and he's like covered up and just like cuts and like scratches and all bruised up. I'm like,
I
you
would
poor
assume,
kid.
like, are you dead? Are
Is
you
you
alive?
is you dead? I does
Yes.
this have to know.
The Reverend was giving serious consideration that Roland might actually be possessed, and during the day he was perfectly fine, but his nights were full of terror. I mean, you're talking to
Ooh.
Aunt Hattie, and then I'm pretty sure at this point you might have figured out that you're not talking to Aunt Hattie, but you just want to,
I'm talking to,
slide
to Chuck.
talking to Casper, and his homeboys. Not that they would actually go that far, but some nice little Ale Dule Dambala type bullshit. Um, Obviously, not a hint to this movie because
No, no.
obviously this is a very terrible idea, but some possession here and there. But the scratches began to appear all over Roland's body, seeming to mark out the letters of the alphabet, as if something was attempting to communicate. So it really does seem like the Ouija board is starting to come into the life of its own, especially with communicating with not just letters, kind of like the Ouija board, but
Yeah.
the alphabet itself. Because sometimes even spirits, from my knowledge of watching movies, I've never used a Ouija board. I will never use a Ouija board, and this is just facts because I am a spiritual person, but I know that that is something that I deeply never want to be considered or catched messing with. But I know that they tend to not spell everything out correctly. They just kind of go off vowels so you know what their name is or what they're trying to say rather than, going on for full sentences like we're
Yeah.
used to writing. Um, the family felt like it was time to consult a Catholic priest. Of course, go
Yeah.
to Catholicism,
You
like,
gotta
is it
go
a
to
rev?
Jesus.
Exactly. So they met with Father Albert Hughes from their Catholic church after hearing the events that had transpired. The priest realized that it was out of his knowledge that he was only to recommend prayer, holy water, and candles. Just like any other horror film that we have ever come across,
It's like, here's what you
other
do.
than an actual like exorcism or anything. But the
It's like
family
it's so
called
like it's like what they did was like, yeah, here's say your Hail Marys, drink some of this holy water, and then just go to Bath and Body Works, use a $5
drink
off
holy
coupon.
water. Drink holy water. Just think about what the fuck you said. Drink holy water.
Yeah.
And like, like,
To purify your insides.
oh yeah, that's not gonna do any purifying for anybody.
It's like
Like,
drinking God's Perrier.
ew. Anyways, um, so the family called Hughes the next morning, reported that they lit the wick of candle and the flames shot up into the ceiling and they were forced to extinguish the candle. Of course, the spirits were fucking furious. I'm like, what do you think this is?
They're like,
Freaking phantasmic?
no,
Like, do you
they're
think this is a fantastical spectacle of
they
lights?
they're over here
And
like, we asked for apple, we didn't want vanilla cinnamon for this stupid candle.
stop it. Throwing your freaking Bath and Body Works preferences up in this bitch.
we
Stop.
we wanted mahogany teakwood, bitch.
We wanted some pumpkin spice. Hughes then reached out to the Archbishop of Washington, D.C., Reverend O'Boyle,
Yeah.
and advised him of the situation. O'Boyle gave Hughes the go ahead to perform an exorcism, even though Hughes had no experience and was ill prepared. I mean, you're throwing a boy into the fire at this point. Like, what
Yeah.
the hell?
It's a literal like baptism by fire almost, where it's like, here, you do it.
Yikes. So, after all that whole commotion, Roland was secretly admitted to the Georgetown Hospital, knowing that the exorcism was about to take place. But their superior gave strict orders that no records be kept. The exorcism then began, and Hughes began the exorcism prayers, but was soon shouting in horror as his arms were sliced open by the bed spring Roland had procured, and thus ending the ceremony. Wow. So,
Yeah. Well, felt kind of bad for that guy. He was just trying to help the kid, and he got all kinds of fucked up.
You know what was my advice to Hughes was to run away. But nobody listens to the person that was like, "Hey,
Yeah.
this is beyond my league."
Or even try this one. Why don't you tie the kid down?
I mean,
tie the boy down. That way he doesn't move
to
from
be
there. He
fair,
can't cut you.
be fair, if you don't know which movie we're not talking about yet, it still technically happened in the movie.
That is true. It did.
It did happen in the movie, but we're not gonna say until the very end if you haven't figured it out yet. But yeah, so why not tie the little boy down? Like it shouldn't be that
safe.
difficult. Just to be safe, but hey, we all learn from our mistakes, and this is why we perfected it in film, and nobody ever knows the difference. And Hughes went on to work for other churches and was left haunted by the experience. I mean, I would be
too.
I would be terrified too.
Yeah.
Like the hell.
Yeah, and what's
So
crazy
at-
too, when I was doing some of the research on it, I found out too that this guy Hughes, because of that, he actually was never able to use that arm again because he got hurt like that bad. I was like, damn, this poor guy.
Yeah, I agree. That's terrible. Like,
Yeah,
it's just the fact that he was only trying to do the bit of good. I mean, don't drag Hughes down. He was only trying to. He
yeah,
even
like he was
said,
just trying
"This
to
is
help.
beyond my league." And then O'Boyle was like, "Yo,
You got
bitch,
this.
go. You got this. I believe
could
in
do
you."
this.
And then it ended up in. I'm surprised it didn't end up in a whole ass lawsuit. But okay, whatever. But at some point, the family did debate moving away as the ordeal was becoming more and more public, and this was confirmed one night when Roland's mother ran to the bathroom after hearing his screams. Carved onto his chest was the word Lewis, and on his hip, Saturday. So on Saturday, March 5th, the family moved to St. Louis the same night that they heard the scratching noises coming from his mattress as he slept. The local Lutheran minister declined to lend assistance, also recommended that they seek a Catholic intervention, but the family members were afraid of a second exorcism. So,
I like how they like go up to this guy and he's like, hell no, y'all take care of this yourselves.
I was like, I heard the first one ended up badly. No thanks. So, but here's my coupon for my next SoundCloud. No, I'm kidding. It's terrible. But, it's totally reasonable, like, not trying to do a second exorcism, but I mean, it totally went wrong, but it was a pretty brave pursuit. So as we go on, when more occurrences started to happen at the homes of relatives, whenever Roland was staying with the family, they had no choice but to request help from the Jesuit priest. The family was referred to Father Raymond Bishop from St. Louis University.
I love that his name is Bishop, so his name is literally like Father Bishop.
Oh, yeah. Father Bishop. That's pretty basic, but hey, it works.
Yeah.
His last name worked in his favor.
Yeah.
That's the most important of it all. After consulting the members of the faculty, Bishop was certain that Roland was possessed and requested help of the university president, Father Reinert.
I
Reinert?
think it might be actually like one of those German names that you were talking about earlier. I think it's Reinert.
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 But it's, they just sound so angry, but they sound so dominant and powerful. Like, I wish I was a German woman some days. Instead of, I mean, I am Latina and I still have my attitudes here and there. I mean, have you guys seen the way that I freaking like slap Yusuf around like a fucking toilet paper? It's fantastic. Anyway,
toilet paper.
yes, toilet paper or a little like with my chancla, and he's like,
And I'm over here like I'm used to this.
yeah, he's very much used to my abuse. Not in a fun way, in
Yeah,
a fun
I
way.
don't have
Now
abuse. I didn't. This isn't a Bruce. I fell down the stairs.
no, but he really much, very much asked for it. He's just like, yes, hit me harder, and I'm like,
Whoa,
what?
whoa,
And he's like,
whoa.
whoa. He's like,
Yo, what is happening over there? Calm down.
oh no, don't even deny. Shut the fuck up. Like, we're anyway, we're talking to this after class when the class is dismissed. Anyways, but Reinert was hesitant to rush into the situation and asked Bishop to look into the matter himself.
What is with this? Like everybody's like, I don't want to do it. How about you do it?
Yeah, it's
They
like,
straight-
hey,
straight
like,
up playing, like,
yeah,
not
Mark
it.
Smith, you do it. No, you
Like
do
they're straight
it.
up just plain not it.
Yeah, exactly. So on March 9th, the bishop was driven to where the family was staying, and the family explained the situation, but omitted the failed exorcism and the wounding of Father Hughes in Maryland.
Which is kind of a shitty thing to do, honestly. Like they're like, yeah, this is what's going on, and they just like don't talk about like, yeah, we already tried an exorcism, and he cut up this dude's arm. But, like, you can do this.
Yeah, I'm like, I believe that this guy is stronger than the last one. I'm like, are you sure?
Like I understand that you're like not trying to scare him away, but at the same time, I feel like that's an important detail to communicate.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if he loses an arm or a leg, it's his funeral. He decided to help him. I mean, I feel like once they meet the person that has like the possession or whatnot, I feel like they have the ability to like, realize how severe the exorcism might be. But hey, I'm not an expert, so love that stuff. So Bishop performed a mild exorcism where he blessed the place instead of the person, where he sprinkled holy water and blessed every room in the house. As Bishop was about to leave the house, sounds of Roland's screams echoed throughout the house. Bishop and the family raced upstairs and witnessed Roland's bed shaking violently for 15 minutes as Roland laid on the bed motionless. I mean... I'm surprised that this kid's not dead. I'm surprised that this kid is like, I've accepted that this is my fate. Auntie Hattie, is this you? Are you shooketh? Are you done shaking me? Like, it's fine. Like, just, he has accepted life as it is. Just, I'm like, this is my fate. When the bed finally stopped shaking, Roland cried out in pain, and when his mother lifted up his shirt, his stomach was covered in slash marks, making zigzag patterns. I mean...
That's insane.
Yeah, so it's one of those things that if you guys have long nails, we're all guilty of, like, something scratching our legs, and we kind of, like, have that... This is going a little bit off topic, where, like... You scratch your whatever surface of your skin and you see like those white marks going across. Basically, I feel like that's like scraping your dead skin almost, and you see those zigzags. But imagine that with blood. Just doing that out of boredom, So the next day, Bishop was consulted with his friend, Father William Bodern. And Bodern visited the residence and witnessed some of the occurrences. The two reviewed the 3 stages of demonic possession: infestation, obsession, and possession.
I've always struggled to understand that, like the 3 stages. Okay, I understand infestation because that's when like.
And I
he's kinda,
understand
like, creeping
possession,
on.
but the
What is the obsession
part.
like? Does the demon become obsessed with like the person they're possessing or something like that?
I feel like it's more like trying the victim trying to find peace in where they're trying to find it. Like basically, they were obsessed with trying to contact the spirit Hattie, or their aunt,
It's
that
possible.
they thought that they have not mailed not one, not two, maybe three attempts to try and contact her. That
Yeah.
of course that the spirit just fed onto that energy, that it could be Aunt Hattie or it could be another spirit that's taking upon that.
Yeah. Or maybe it's like they're taking an obsession that the person has and kind of using that to make them weaker and like
Yeah,
more susceptible to possession.
and that could also be true as
Yeah.
well. So they had already witnessed two stages and vowed that they find an exorcist before the third stage. I mean, I feel like at that point they were already in the third stage, but go off. So Bowden wrote to the Archbishop Ritter outlining the case and asking him to authorize a exorcism. Ritter chose Bowden despite knowing that he was unqualified.
That's the
Um,
third time now. It's like I don't want to do it. Just take care of it. You got this.
It's like, I've trained you enough. It's fine. I mean, I mean, you don't have that much training at all. But hey, I believe in you.
Yeah.
So on March 16th, Bowden said Mass and confessed his sins. Spent most of the day in prayer before being driven to the house where the exorcism would begin. Despite being ordered to keep the exorcism a secret, Bowden wanted the bishop to keep a diary of the events for reference. I mean, it's a first timer. You're trying to keep some experience under your belt. I'm like, let me just send to my resume real quick, that kind of thing. But like, I'm pretty sure it didn't go as planned or as what he would probably think.
Yeah.
After everybody said their prayers, Bowden began to read the litany of saints and the bed began to immediately shake. Sorry, words. Um, so this lasted for 2 hours until the final amen, where Bowden stood and shouted, I command thee. Every time Bowden said the words Lord or God, Roland would scream in pain, and additional scratches would appear on his flesh, including the word hell.
Oosh.
I
I don't like that.
Yikes.
It's creepy.
So, like, have you ever guys had that moment? I don't know why this reminds me so much of, like, where we have those moments where we're with our calculators and we just kind of write the words. I think it was
Like hello, hell.
L, like it was 1134, and
Yeah.
then if you turned it upside down, it wrote hell. Like it's kind of like those subliminal messages, but it's just kind of like it reminded me of that, where that there's something that's like occurring to you that's making you write those things. He's being possessed, but not really according to
Yeah.
these three stages. I feel like he was possessed at this point, but like they didn't know of the severity of it.
Exactly.
But Bowden continued as Roland thrashed and about hitting his pillow, headboard, and babbling with his eyes closed. Bowden and Bishop stayed until 5 a.m. praying. Exhausted, the men rose to leave. Then suddenly, Roland sat up and began singing Swanee River? Swanee River?
I think it's Swanee.
Swanee River in a horrific, distorted voice. So things that you guys normally hear in a horror film, it's fine. It's
Yeah.
normal. And about afraid to leave the boy, the priest stayed until 7:30 a.m. Like these guys have been at it all night.
Yeah, these guys are troopers.
And I would be already tired. I'm like, yo, listen, man, like this demon needs to go to bed. Like she's like, just like go to sleep, please. Um, but if for 4 more nights, the exorcism continued with Roland's behavior escalating each night. So not only did they stay an entire day, but 4 more nights of
Yeah,
this
like wow, that's
never ending
oof, crazy.
nightmare. And it's just it's intense. Like just imagine sitting there with some literally some boy just throwing some words at you with bleeding across his chest as words keep running out, especially when you say the word Lord or God.
Mhm.
And so he spat at all of those assembled and bit anyone who tried to pin him down, as well as urinating during symbolic parts of the Latin prayer. And he also uttered some horrible obscenities. At that
Yeah.
point, Bowden decided that it was time to convert the boy to Catholicism and prepared the room in rectory during the initial reading of the litany. Roland attacked the priest and a student and broke both of their noses. Oh,
Jeez.
God,
This
that
kid is
sucks.
this poor kid was
Uh,
just getting so violent on these poor people. Like this priest and this guy, they're just like, now you got broken noses now.
uh, I mean, as if,
Like
I
this was like
mean,
some
it
serious
could be
shit.
worse. He could have lost his arm like
That's
the other
true.
one did, but at least this was just their face,
Yeah.
not just the other one that practically lost his arm and he couldn't use his arm after that. Like, it's terrible. I think it was Hughes. Hughes is the one that fucking lost his arm.
Yeah.
Like, after praying in Mass for several days, the conversion and exorcism proved unsuccessful, and Roland returned to his home in St. Louis. That sucks.
Yeah.
Like,
Like
just imagine just that demon is very persistent. It's like, no, I'm gonna
yeah.
stay here.
I
I'm
think it
gonna
was
stay
pretty
here.
strong
Oh,
at that
that's
point.
great. Like, at that point, I already told you guys. I think he was already in the third stage. But I guess like I said, they were also very um not qualified in some way, but they tried for
Exactly.
5 nights. It's fine. Like, I gotta give them credit that these priests actually tried for 5 nights. After several days of quiet, Roland asked the family to come to his room. He traced his fingers into the letters as the bed shook. His cousin wrote the same of the words that he traced, and they stated, I will stay 10 days and will return in 4, and all people will mangle me, will die in a terrible death.
So normal
So,
kid things.
yeah, just,
I mean,
predicting
have
your family's
like
death, and, it's very weird that, that you would want to like sit there and memorize someone's handwriting to know what your fate is. But hey, enjoy the next 10 days while you're at it, right? Um, so Roland's mother calls Bodern and he arrived at the home. As the priest recited the prayers, Roland asked for a pencil and a notebook. As Bodern's instructions, Bishop recorded everything in his diary, including Roland's writings. One of the sketches on the paper was of a human face next to the words dead bishop, as well as the words you may not believe me, then Roland will suffer forever. Bowden decided that it was time to try and convert Roland to Catholicism again and set the date for his baptism at April 1st. Yeah, let's just baptize a possessed kid in front of the entire church, why don't we?
I don't think they did it like in front of like a service. I think they like pulled him to the side and like did it as like its own thing. 'Cause
But
can you
it
imagine
reminds
like
me a
this
little bit.
poor
It's like,
family?
where's my money, Lebowski? Just dump the freaking kid in there, like, be cleansed,
Like I just
motherfucker.
can't imagine like the like this regular Sunday service and this kid just comes in here babbling like a maniac and they just like have to dunk him in the water
Where's
and
my money,
everybody's like, what the fuck is
Lebowski?
going on?
Exactly. Oh my god. Just imagine some kid, like, what's wrong with him? Oh, like, it's okay. He's filled with the whole. No, I should never say that. Sorry. Don't. He's filled with happy joys of his baptism. That's what I'm gonna say.
Exactly.
So, on the day of the baptism, Bowden made his preparations. He was unaware of the chaos that had unfolded in the family's car, and Roland had tried to take the wheel and run the car into a light post. You know,
Jeez.
at least there was no cameras back then, so you're a clear kid. You're
Yeah,
you're
you're
not
good. You're not gonna
charged
get
for
a
any
ticket.
murder. Exactly. Um, so when the car arrived at the church, Bodern saw that Roland's father and uncle was dragging the boy out of the car in a torn suit, and he was spitting, screaming, and laughing. Instead of the original baptism that was planned inside the church, Roland was taken into the rectory where he was asked 3 times that he would renounce Satan before finally relenting, and the ceremony took 4 hours. Imagine just fighting with this kid
Jeez,
for
that would be
4 hours
exhausting.
to
Yeah.
just of like, yo, like, we're trying to cleanse you real quick. Like, can you not? Like, it's just
Yeah.
that
Because
would
like
be
I
so
imagine,
exhausting to
it's
me.
like exhausting in a physical way and exhausting in a mental way because you just like get frustrated. It's like you can't get through this to this person.
Exactly. I need to stop saying exactly. That's not a word that we use. I need to stop that. Um, so the next day, things took a turn for the worst, and Roland woke and broke several items in the room before the priest arrived. Bodern decided to perform the Holy Communion with the help of bishop and another priest, but it still took 5 attempts before Roland swallowed the wafer and completed his communion. But did he really complete his communion? Because he's still a little demon after all.
Well, I mean, I think it's like the
Everything.
whole thing about the ceremony, like, doing the ceremony in the Catholic way and then the kid eating the wafer, like, that is a ceremonial communion, even if he's possessed or anything. He still did a communion, I think.
Yeah. And it did make a little difference as his demonic behavior continued on his way home until he was finally admitted to the mental ward of Alexian Brothers Hospital in St. Louis. His situation did not improve after assaulting a couple of Jesuit hospital workers as he was strapped down and Bodern was called in as the exorcism prayers began in a deep, emanated voice from Roland, spewing profanities and threatening to kill the priests. I mean, that's
This
normal from an
kid, man,
exorcist.
how many people has this person hurt?
I
Because
mean,
like
a
he
lot.
he he messed up that dude's arm. He broke some like two dudes' noses. He assaulted several hospital workers.
Yeah, so
Jeez.
there's a lot going on for him. This is if you guys are wondering what this is your puberty. Normally, they just didn't know it yet.
Oh my god.
But normally,
Sometimes your body goes through changes.
if you guys are going through these changes, don't worry. Just seek a little Catholic priest, and you'll be on your way. So the priest returned on Easter Monday in order to continue with the exorcism ceremony, but the room was so cold that they had to wear an overcoat. Roland's face was so twisted that he no longer resembled his old self. The priest attempted to make Roland ask for spiritual communion in a deep voice and responded that it wasn't enough. And he would have to say one word, one big word, and he would never let him say it.
Yeah, so the demon essentially said that like the only way, kind of like the same thing they did in Conjuring 2 where you had to say the demon's name to expel it.
Yeah.
But like it looks like here it's that Roland himself had to say the word, but the demon would never let him say it.
Yeah. It was very hard for Roland to say
Yeah.
this word, whatever it might be. I still can't figure it out quite yet. But on April 18th, Bodern had a revelation. He called that the demon mentioned that it can only respond in tongue of whoever they possess. Bodern called his fellow priest and asked him to meet him the night of Roland's bedside. After he said the exorcism prayers in Latin, he told Roland that he could respond in English. Roland asked about Latin, and one of the priests taught him the Hail Mary in Latin. After 2 hours, Roland asked if he could recite the rosary, and he was given the beads. He held the crucifix and said the Apostles' Creed and claimed that he had a spiritual communion, and then fell into a sleep state after complaining that the Christian medals placed on him were burning. Oh,
Jeez.
yikes. That feels like
Ouch,
it
ouch, ouch.
hurts. About an hour later, Bodern recited the last Amen with a deep, rich voice emanated from Roland and said the following: I am Saint Michael, I command you, Satan, and the other spirits to leave this body in the name of Dominus. Bodern realized that the word that the demon spoke of that would not be said. So Roland writhed and contorted for 8 minutes and screamed before finally stopping and whispering, "He's gone." Roland described the dream as he had of an angel fighting demons looking down upon him and smiling, and said that the word Dominus, which locked away the demons. After Roland left the hospital, his room was locked and an order was given that it must never be opened again. The hospital was eventually demolished years later. So I'm guessing there was a lot of hauntings after that, and I'm pretty sure it was locked away in that very same hospital as
Yeah.
well. I mean, I feel like that's how it works, especially when you're trying to lock away some demons or whatever of that fun possession things might be. So, have you guys guessed the movie yet?
Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da 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 da.
Shut up, Yusuf. You have a clue?
A clue. Well, okay. Here's one little clue. Um, in the movie, the boy was replaced by a girl.
Yes, she was, and there was a couple of few iconic things where we have the head rotating. We have a couple of puking, projectile puking of pea soup and all that stuff. So, if you guys have not guessed it now after that entire spiel, especially with all these difficult words that Yusuf decided to throw in, it is The Exorcist.
Woo!
So, that is the original story that inspired The Exorcist that we all know of, our lovely little Reagan. And if you guys have not seen the series, they actually have another series continuing Reagan's journey, but instead of with other characters as well. But she actually is a very helpful character to the priest in the televised series. But yeah, that is The Exorcist for
Wait, there
us.
was an Exorcist like TV series?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, it's great.
I just
I
saw they
love it.
made. I just made they made like more movies, and I didn't know they actually made like a TV series.
Yeah, they
That's
made a
pretty
TV
cool.
series with Reagan all grown up and stuff.
Oh wow. Huh. Interesting.
It's called The Exorcist too, but like you just see we do see Reagan all grown up, and she does have a daughter. But it's a whole bunch of good stuff going on after that.
Yeah. Well, okay. Here's my problem with that whole story. I personally don't really believe in a lot of that possession stuff.
Oh,
Just
sis, don't get me
no,
started on possessions because
especially well, it's not even. It's
I
not.
witnessed a lot of it. I witnessed a
It's.
lot of stuff like that.
I don't think. Okay. I don't. It's not possession itself that I don't believe in. It's the whole exorcism thing. Just because there's. Of course, it's very convenient that they aren't allowed to keep records of that stuff, but at the same time, it's like, how do you prove that these things actually happened? Because
Yeah,
especially
and
because like a lot of the times the people that did survive these things or went through this, they don't talk about it. They're very private, as we saw with like having to change Roland's name from his original name just because we had to value his privacy and all that stuff. And I just have a little bit. I'm like kind of skeptical about that kind of stuff.
yeah. I
And
mean,
even
it's
and even
all
like
to their
later on,
perspective.
yeah, and even then like later on when certain like scientists and like even other theologians were studying the case of Roland, a lot of them sort of came to the conclusion that he was just a really spoiled kid and he just wanted attention.
I mean, I don't think he would go that far, but then again, I understand where it comes through on that,
Yeah,
aspect as well.
yeah, but overall, it's a very good spooky story, and it definitely could keep you up at night depending on what time you're listening to this.
Oh my gosh. Honestly, just talking about it, I just feel like something's
Yeah,
watching me.
yeah. You know
Honestly,
what's funny
like,
when I was doing the research for this, I got a little bit freaked out, and I told you about this because um, it was right around the time I was getting to the actual exorcism itself, where I was home by myself, and it was weird because it was in the afternoon. It was like 2, maybe 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I could have sworn I heard somebody call my name, and I looked, and there was
sis,
nobody
I'm
there,
good.
and I'm like, maybe I shouldn't be doing this, but I kept doing it anyway because why
Yeah, but then you
not?
make me say it, right? Like you make me read it because it's just like
Because I already went through it. Now it's your turn to go through it.
Yeah, you go through the next one. Apparently, this one's gonna be a real shocker, according
Well,
to
okay, for me, this one's real
Lisa.
shocking because this is like actual things that are documented to have happened. But before I get to that, I do want to give you guys a quick disclaimer on it because, like I said, it's really dark. It might be triggering for some, um, just because of the subject matter on it.
Yeah. So honestly, he didn't give me a disclaimer of what was contained. So anything that was triggered in The Exorcist, I'm sorry, I blame Yusef for everything. But now that he's actually being a responsible adult, I'm gonna trigger it back to him. So anything that I did say in the Exorcist that did offend you or like it was triggering to you, I'm sorry. He should have put a disclaimer in the beginning of this document. But hey, all lives fair, I guess.
All right, so we're getting now to our second story of the night. This is okay. The main inspiration for the following film and like the story behind it is actually from a series of murders that occurred in August of 1990, dubbed the Gainesville Ripper by the press, which is why it's kind of creepy because um, when I was doing the research for this, it happened to be August of 2020.
Oh, love
So I
that.
was like, that's amazing. And then it got even creepier because, based on this, on August 21st, 1990, a man in dark clothing crept into Williamsburg Village Apartments in Gainesville, Florida, and pulled a hit list from his bag, which included a ski mask and a pair of leather gloves.
Ooh, I know this one. It's Friday the 13th.
No, no, it's not.
Ah,
No, it's not.
fuck.
This
Damn.
happened in 1990. Friday the 13th came out in 1980.
I mean, Friday the 13th can be inspired by it. I mean,
From the future.
the future, yes.
Well,
Anyway.
what was kind of creeped out by
Or
this
no,
too
wait,
is
it's mostly like Bastric Boys,
it's Backstreet Boys.
Right? Like, in Ski Mask, just they trying to control their latest single, whatever. Anyway, bad analogy. Sorry, guys. I'll let him continue.
Okay. Well, what I did find creepy about this is, again, when I was doing the research for this, it happened to be August 25th.
Oh.
So just out of pure coincidence, I was like looking into this exactly 30 years after like it kind of began.
We kind of tend to do that a lot, honestly. There have
Yeah,
been a couple of
it's
dates that have lined up.
weirdly coincidental. So
Yeah.
it's
Just like
interesting.
apparently, like even though people say that the rate of murder goes up in the summer, it apparently goes down in the summer. I mean, recently for our generation, but that was like the thing. But now it's like, but the murders mostly happen in the fall, because
Hmm.
it's not as hot and you can get
Yeah.
away with murder. And there's also like climate that helps you get away with, those burying goods. But hey, I'm not a murderer, but I'm just thinking in the way of a serial killer would be. So
Yeah. So anyway, what's interesting too is that the man would later claim to have been told to go to apartment 113 of the complex by the voice of Gemini, which was the name of the serial killer from The Exorcist 3.
it
So
nicely ties in.
it's like nice little connection there.
Yeah.
So he had viewed the film recently and he identified with it profoundly. But in reality, what he had done was follow the young tenants from the apartment. He followed them home from a nearby Walmart and vowed to return that same night under the cover of darkness.
This reminds me a little bit too much of Zodiac Killer, but
Little
I
bit,
could be
right?
right. Yeah, exactly.
So he tiptoed into the deck and tried to open the door, but it was locked. So he pulled a screwdriver from his hit list bag and he forced his way in. He then swapped his entry tools for a Marine combat knife and a roll of duct tape, and he ripped two 6-inch strips from the roll and taped them to his left arm as he made his way inside. He crept into the kitchen and past the living room, where he noticed the form of a woman sleeping. He walked past her and went into the upstairs area. There he saw the second girl asleep on her bed and went over to her. He then proceeded to duct tape her and stab her chest. The girl jolted awake and tried to kick at her attacker, but she soon died.
I
After
mean,
this,
like,
yeah,
that is just like is this a Ted Bundy? Like, this very much looks like a Ted Bundy case. Where it's like, but like, why move past the first girl, you know? I'm like, if she's asleep, might as well get rid of her so the other girl doesn't scream. But I mean, you know,
Hmm.
um,
I mean,
could be wrong.
there was a
But he
method.
wants to kill the second girl,
He
though.
wants a method.
Not the
Yeah.
first, but the second. I was like,
Yeah. And then after he killed the second girl that was in the upstairs area, he went back downstairs and he walked to the second girl that was sleeping in the couch, and he placed his hand on her mouth. He pulled his knife on her and he threatened to kill her if she didn't do as she was told. And after this, he bound her arms and made her walk over to the kitchen, and then proceeded to perform horrific sexual acts upon her for the next half hour.
and I spoke too soon.
And after he had done this, he led her back into the living room and instructed her to lay on her back. He placed the duct tape over her mouth and then stabbed her in the back a total of 5 times.
Wow. So he kind of got his way. He's like, all right, I had you my fun, so I'm about to like end your life real quick. So let me let you just like, yep, that's
Yep.
some good cake right there, you know? Some good, nice skin cake. You know, I'll say hi to Jeffrey Dahmer for me, you know, like, bye. Like,
Now, after the girl had died, he returned back to the one upstairs. He removed the duct tape from her, he stripped the body, and dragged her to the edge of the bed. And he then stabbed her in the thigh and left the body in a degrading pose. And then he went back downstairs to the second body. He removed the duct tape and he proceeded to have post-mortem sex with the victim before mutilating her body and then cleaning all evidence with dish soap, which he then placed between the victim's legs.
and what do you mean he left it between the victim's legs? Like,
Yeah. And,
wait,
I
what?
didn't put this in the research that I put in here because I did this after I found out about this after I wrote this. But by mutilating her, like what he actually did was he cut off her nipples and took them with her. Like took the nipples with him when he left. Yeah, this guy was not a
I do not
So-
appreciate being a girl in this podcast right now.
he was a little twisted. That's why I had the disclaimer because this one's tough. Yeah, this one's like really it's really dark, like I said.
Yeah.
So anyway, the next night, the killer rode a stolen bike to 3533 Southwest 24th Avenue and made his way
Look that up to see if it's real. Like if you're like me, look
please
it up
don't,
if it's
like,
real.
don't. I'm sure it is. But like I don't want to go there and be like, "Oh yeah, this is where some person died," you know?
I honestly have a really bad habit of like, oh, there's an address included. Wait, let me look it up if it's
Yeah.
real quick. You know, like you know how there's like those phone numbers are like 555 555. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
I was the kid. I was a dumbass. I was like, I thought that was a real number, but like, hey, we all live and learn.
Yeah. And so anyway, he made his way over to that address, and he made his way inside the residence using the same tools he had used the previous night.
Ooh.
And as he scanned the residence, he noticed a hiding spot inside of a bookcase covering an alcove, and he just waited there. And now, at around 10:15 p.m., the woman who lived there entered the residence, and that's when he attacked her. He covered her mouth with one hand and brandished his knife with the other. Again, he threatened to kill her if she did not follow his instructions. He groped her, and then he marched her into the bedroom. And after that, he sexually assaulted her, and afterwards picked up his knife and stabbed her in the back, killing her. After this, he mutilated the body further, and this is where it gets insane. He finished his work by decapitating the body and leaving her head on a bookshelf, and turned the head in such a way that her head was looking at her body.
Oh, I mean, did this happen in the movie? I mean, I'm pretty sure it didn't happen in the movie, but there is something similar. It
I
has
think
to
there
have.
are there are similar things happen in the movie.
Okay.
Yeah. And in one final act of degradation, he positioned the body to make it look as if she was sitting at the edge of the bed before leaving without a trace.
Oh.
Yeah.
How are you able to make even stand a dead body to stand
I mean,
there
if
that
you
long,
if you
know?
wait long enough, when like the postmortem paralysis thing is on there. You can pretty much position a body any way you want, I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
anyway. Ugh.
After resting on Sunday, the killer began his hunt for another victim on Monday. And then that's when he ventured to the Gatorwood apartments and peeped through the windows until he found what he was looking for, a lone woman talking on the phone with her friend. At 3 a.m., he unzipped his bags and took out the tools and clothing he had used in the previous killings. He again broke the lock and ventured inside. As he made his way into the woman's room, he stopped when he noticed the large body of an athletic man. The killer aimed at the man's solar plexus and brought the knife down. The young man awakened and screamed, but he was unable to fight off his attacker and died shortly thereafter. So, yeah, this guy's up to 3 people that he's killed so far, and that's insane. Like, like this, and not only that, right off the bat, you can tell that he's a serial killer just because of the repeating patterns, the whole brutality of the crimes, and just
exactly.
just how like severe the crime scenes were.
Ye-
Yeah, and then
I think.
after, yeah, go ahead.
No, I think I just the first part is what got me shocked right now. Everything just really seems like this killer seems very Ted Bundy to me.
A
I
little
mean, I will
bit.
always keep mentioning that because like he did kill a whole bunch of like college girls, especially in their dorms.
Hmm.
Attempting to like charm them. Especially he was a really good looking man. So the fact that this
Yeah,
guy just was just on his third hunting spree was very weird to me. I mean, do we know what year this was? I mean, it was 1990, right?
yeah.
Like, yeah, so this was way before. So I could be wrong, but continue.
Hmm. So, as the killer was cleaning his hands and clothing, the bedroom door opened and the woman stepped out with a curling iron. Noticing the man, she ran back into the bedroom and locked the door, but the man kicked the door open and grabbed her. Using the same methods for intimidation as he did in the previous ones, um, he forced her to perform a degrading script as he sexually assaulted her. After this, he stabbed her in the back 3 times.
Ugh,
Yeah,
stop it.
so this
This is
guy
not
has a.
some play for like Julius Caesar. Come on now, like. He's
Yeah,
like, let
like
me stab you in the back after I just make you like do things and you think you're gonna get alive alone. You're
yeah,
not.
like jeez, it's honestly really chilling. That's
Yeah.
like that's see like that's this kind of stuff scares me because these are things that actually happen. Like there's
Yeah.
concrete evidence that this stuff happened, and the stuff that these things have happened after these events. It's just terrifying.
I mean, but like I'm not one to talk though, but like if you really think about it, we haven't really had a serial killer in such a long time that still like prevents in their patterns because they even get found out even before they get to like their third or their fourth murder. By the first
Yeah.
or second one, like they get figured out so quick
Hmm.
that we don't have things like this that happen anymore. I guess our technology is very advanced
Yeah, because at the
to find
time,
out. Yeah.
yeah, because at the time too, DNA was relatively for like DNA for forensic investigation was relatively new at the time.
Hmm.
So things that normally would take a couple days now would take like 3 to 4 weeks in those days. So
Yeah.
this guy, could probably kill like 10, 15 more people before the evidence even came back, and even then that could have been like inconclusive.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, it's how we haven't had a serial killer like this in such a long
Hmm.
time. That's just like I'm not saying that it should happen again because it shouldn't. It never. I would never wish this upon someone. But it's just like um, now that there's like all these influence for like horror films, it's all a pattern, honestly.
Yeah.
Just like every horror film, every really good writing. I mean, not really good writing because mind you that there's always that argument that people who write horror films because it's easy and it's easy to do. We already have influence. Like it's one of those things that it's like you could do it and it would be okay because it's something that's kind of based on real life or
Hmm.
somewhat of real life. Which is the one thing that I really hate about people's arguments about horror films. But hey, I'm biased, so
So going back to this,
yes.
after he killed this fourth victim now, he attempted to clean the body as he had previously done, but he was getting careless and he actually left a piece of duct tape and his knife at the scene.
Dumbass, dumbass.
Yeah, I think it has to do with like part of the when they
He
build
was
like, the
getting
psychological
comfortable.
when they like build the psychological profile that at one point they've gotten away with it it's to so many times at this point they just feel invincible, so they just get
Yeah.
careless.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Agreed.
hmm So then on Saturday, August 25th, the bodies of the first two victims were found, and they were identified as 18-year-old Sonia Larson and 17-year-old Christina Powell. And the day after that, authorities found the body of 18-year-old Christina Hoyt, which was the girl that had been decapitated.
Ooh.
And on
Yikes.
August 27th, two more bodies were found, that of 23-year-old Manuel Tabuada and Tracy Pauls. They were actually seniors at University of Florida.
Oh, UF students, I'm
Yeah, because
so sorry.
this was down at, yeah, this was down by
Yikes.
UF, yeah, like in that same area in Gainesville.
I mean, not to be fair, some UF students they talk a lot of crap, but
Hey,
like,
hey, hey, come on, that's not enough to get killed over though.
I mean, I know it's just there's kind of a rivalry, but hey, I was still that's still university students. You're still young. You're still trying to get your life figured out, and then you get murdered
Yeah.
by some guy that we don't even know his name. So like, this is disgusting. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's terrible. And I mean, it's crazy because, it's Florida and, we're literally like, we're a special state. How about that?
We'll call it. Yeah,
So
I'll call it that. I'll call it
I'll
a
call it
very
the
special
special
to
state.
the special state.
Sons, like, guys, let's be realistic. How many times, if you guys are from Florida, if you guys are not from Florida, hi, we're from Florida. But how many of you guys, just look outside, you're like, it's a beautiful day, and then 10 minutes later, it's like, you look outside and it's raining. It's terrible. Like yesterday, I was like, I'm gonna go for a jog with my dog. Florida said, haha, that's funny. Like, whoosh, like, just straight up, like, complete war zone of just wet and distress and just
A
flood and
mess.
traffic. We love Florida. Not really, there's also a lot of Florida memes of
Yeah,
Florida
I
man,
mean,
but
yeah,
hey,
Florida man.
yeah. But
Yeah.
here we go with Florida man. This is the Florida man series now.
But yeah, so the brutality of these killings sparked an outrage, and it just caused like mass panic in that area, and many of the students just ended up leaving, and um, pretty much the students that fled, they were replaced with national news media attempting to like they were trying to follow the crimes and like the series of events that led to this kind of stuff.
Wow, they were desperate for a story.
Yeah, and at the same time, it's because like it's it's one of those things, kind of like what they do in movies where they get they're so brutal, they're so violent that they make for good TV essentially.
Mm-hmm.
As shocking and as sad as that is, that kind of stuff makes for high ratings on TV.
Yeah, we love the shock value. That's the
Yeah,
thing.
that
The
shock
shock
value
value
goes a
sells.
long way. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. But going along here some more on September 7th, 1990, which is a week from the recording of this podcast. A fugitive named Danny Rolling was arrested in Ocala, Florida, after he attempted to rob a supermarket at gunpoint. Funny enough, the supermarket that he tried to rob was a Winn Dixie, and this kind of made me chuckle a little bit because that was I used to work at Winn Dixie, like that was my first ever job, and I
Yeah.
just thought that was really funny because I'm like, I just can't imagine some guy just coming into the to my store and trying to rob it at gunpoint. Like, I'd be terrified.
I'm like, that's a whole ass supermarket though. Like, why
Yeah.
wouldn't Dixie? Like Target, sure. Like Publix, sure. I mean, the subs, come on. Like, who wouldn't? But like, why are Winn Dixie like, yo? I feel like all the Winn Dixies are even shut down right now. Like, or there's not a lot of them existing at
There's
that
not a lot
point.
left. I mean, there's one close to me. That's
Yo,
actually the one that
remember
I looked up at.
Albertsons? Albertsons
Yo,
is
Albertsons. Oh my
it's a dead
god.
zone. But like, I loved Albertsons.
Yeah, it's crazy too because actually, like about 5 minutes from me, there's a strip mall that used to have an Albertsons, and it's so sad over there because where the Albertsons used to be, there's still nothing there. It's just like you can still see inside. It's just a completely abandoned place. Like you can still see the aisles and everything. It's kind of
What I
creepy,
love
honestly.
what I loved about Albertsons was being able to. They were basically like the off-brand of like Blockbuster when you didn't want to rent out movies at Blockbuster. They had their own little movie section as well. That
Yeah, that's
also
true.
helped them nicely in business. But the fact that
Apparently
it
not
was
enough
Winn
though.
Dixie, yeah, it's definitely a really weird factor of why, but okay.
So here's what's interesting about this Danny Rowling character. He was actually wanted in Louisiana for the attempted murder of his own father. So what happened there? There's not really a lot of details there that I could find, but apparently him and his father they got into some sort of fight, and it escalated to the point where Rowling shot him in the face. Like he didn't die after getting shot in the face, though.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Mm.
And what's even more interesting is disturbing crime had also occurred in Louisiana back in 1989, where 55-year-old William Grissom, his 24-year-old daughter Julie, and his 8-year-old grandson Sean were killed. Uh,
Oh.
William and Sean were killed quickly, but the killer took his time with Julie, and the manner of death and sexual assault were similar to the MO of the Gainesville killings. So, once word reached the police department in Louisiana because
Oh.
of this guy's outstanding warrant, they noticed a lot of the similarities in the murder, and they told the police in Gainesville about it, and like they were like, "Hey, try to see if you can make a connection with this and see if this guy was the one responsible for this, for these crimes."
I want to throw up. Gross. So fucking gross.
Yeah, and in 1991, about a year after the killings, a task force investigating the Ripper cases, they came across reports of a man who had run away from Gainesville after a botched bank robbery in August of 1990, and a trail of clues led authorities to an old campsite and found several items of interest, and among these were a screwdriver with visible notches indicating that it had been used to pry something open, and several cassette tapes of a man who claimed to be Danny Rowling making statements that could be of relation to the murders.
Oh yeah, so you wanted to be
So,
found out. Real smart Florida man. Like
yeah, I don't think he's Florida man, I think he's Louisiana man.
Louisiana man, but still he was wandering around Florida
Yeah.
anyway, so
And at the same time, I think that's also part of their, I guess insanity would be the right word for it, where
mhm.
they have to do things a certain way, they have certain methods, and I guess part of this guy's method was to record himself talking about this kind of stuff and probably like bragging to himself about having done it and stuff like that.
Yeah, weird, gross.
And things escalated to the point too because some news also broke out that Rowling had been sharing information with his cellmate in jail, and he was relating details about the murders that only he could have known.
Gross. Ugh.
So because of this, a warrant was issued to get DNA samples from him, and his DNA matched with what they had found at the crime scenes.
Oh man, such
So
short-lived Danny Rowling. Like
his stuff was
what were you
found out.
doing?
Yeah.
Like
So he
you
was found
know,
out, and like he essentially he did end up confessing to this. And what's creepy is this is what he said after his confession. There are some things you just can't run from.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you think? I mean, if
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that this also does confirm the Louisiana killing as well. So like,
Hmm.
that's very
Yeah.
unfortunate. That
About
these
those
ladies
people,
have to
yeah.
go through the yeah.
Yeah. So then on February 13th, 1994, he actually pleaded guilty to all charges. But I guess because of the prison system in Florida, he actually wasn't executed until October 25th of 2006
Damn, he lived a
via
long ass life.
via lethal injection. Yeah,
Damn.
and before his death, he did confess to the triple murder in Louisiana.
Yep. So
So
there it
yeah,
goes.
yeah. So, do you think you guys have solved the mystery of this one and tried and figured out what movie this was?
It's really interesting because like this movie does very much revolve around college age kids,
Mm-hmm.
and like not so much of the family aspect, but it's very much revolved around um college kids
Yeah,
and
that and
like
also like the big national like media attention too.
yeah, even though this movie was known to be a parody of all slasher films, but it was also inspired by a real life killing, as you guys, of this Danny Rolling character. So,
Yeah, so
I,
if you haven't guessed by now, it is the movie Scream.
yeah, so Scream
So
was,
yeah, it's interesting because there's like little bits and pieces of what inspired Scream from the story, but
yeah, especially with like the phone calls, I feel like
yeah.
is what the part that should have given it away. But I mean, like, there's also a lot of horror films that you see someone getting a call from a random character. We
Hmm.
also do see these similarities in the movie Halloween. And but all you hear is the heavy breathing rather than do you like scary movies? Which one's your favorite one?
Yeah.
I
So
also thought like her answer was also unfair. Like she says, "Oh, like who's the killer of like?" And then she says, "Oh, Jason Voorhees." I was like, "No, it's his mom. You
it's
dumb
just
bitch."
mom.
Like technically, she was not wrong, but like
Yeah, you were technically wrong
there's
in
too
the
many
sense that
technicalities.
yeah. But what's interesting too is when the script for this movie was being written, um, when they gave it to New Line Cinema to review and to try to sell the script as a viable project for a film,
Hmm.
the executives at New Line Cinema were kind of shocked. They were like, "You got to tone some of this stuff down because we literally would not be able to market this type of movie. It's just way too violent." So they had to tone a lot of it down, and it kind of did lead to Scream. Actually, that's kind of where they got the idea of like they got the idea of like the college age students, the national media attention. That one bit where the girl was talking on the phone. Um, I would also say part of the ways that the killer would like go in and leave without a trace
Yeah.
type of thing. Very
Hi,
similar to
Blumhouse.
Ghostface from Scream.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting because when I was like, I didn't know that there was some basis of reality for that movie, and I had it opened my eyes to what happened with this type of research. And again,
Yeah.
it's one of those research things that I wasn't doing at the best of times. I was doing that kind of stuff at like 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning because I'm insane.
That's our best times of research where you're
That's
losing
where
lack
we're
of
most
sleep and
productive
we're
apparently.
yeah, I mean I really should be cutting up this whole staying up really late at night crap, but hey, whatever happens, I mean that's where our best ideas come and
Yeah,
we are able to put out content like this. So yeah.
yeah. So yeah, this episode actually ended up being pretty long. I think I don't even know how at which point we are
We're
in the
probably either
recording,
at 2
but
hours or something.
I think we're a
Well,
little
no,
bit
or
less. But
less, yeah. Because it didn't mess up a lot.
yeah, but
Uh,
yeah. When it comes down to the editing, we'll see how long it actually was. But I think it'll be around the same length, maybe a little bit longer than our regular episodes.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think we're actually gonna do a second part to this because we did find, or I did research on two more um, true stories that inspired some horror movies. But as a time constraint, we don't want to lay all four of these stories on you because that will make it a straight 2.5, maybe even 3.5 hour podcast, and
Yeah.
I don't think you guys want to listen to that.
I
That's
mean,
gonna
but
be a
if
pain
there
to get
is
through.
something that you guys want us to cover, feel free to hit us up.
Yeah, for sure.
We did cover Scream and Exorcist. I don't know what the other two are, but okay, we can't spoil it because you guys are gonna have to
Yeah,
guess it. But
exactly.
if you guys think of anything that we can throw out there, you guys are more than welcome to.
Yeah,
We're
give us stuff to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, we have a whole bunch of stuff planned, but
Yeah,
we're
for
just
sure.
trying to make sure that we are always continuing on with our content because we
Mm-hmm.
really do enjoy putting this out. We are thinking about maybe going to
To a video
YouTube,
format. Yeah.
a video YouTube live format. Because I feel like this would be more entertaining rather than just listening to us ramble on. But if you guys like that, then that's also cool as well. But I know there's
Yeah.
people that prefer visuals as well.
Because that would
Just something to
see.
like, you guys are just doing your chores and you guys just want to hear us ramble on in your kitchen or whatever you guys are doing, then that's cool as well.
Plus, if you like the video stuff, you get to see our dumb faces.
Yeah, and hopefully it's not on these late at nights because I would probably
No,
look
definitely not.
so tired and
We would look like hot messes at
exactly.
two
So
o'clock
we're
in the
trying to look
morning.
our best. We'll try to look our best.
Yeah.
So
But
yeah.
anyway, where can we find you, Vanya?
You can find me on YouTube and on Twitter on HHN Cultus. I do Halloween Horror Nights and horror inspired makeup. I also do a lot of fashion and stuff inspired by Universal as well. And I do theme park blogs and other cool stuff like that. So follow me.
Yeah. And you can find us on our podcast. We're at on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook as Sounds from the Grave.
And
You can also and you can also listen to this podcast on Anchor, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. So
wow, I'm so proud
plenty
of you.
Thanks, I'm proud of me too. So yeah, there's plenty of places, and plenty of resources that you can use in order to listen to the podcast. You can also find my personal Instagram at Yusuf1220 and my personal Twitter at YusufSabat1. On there, I do go by the lovely, adorable name of Biff Jerky. Guess it's a really funny name.
Realizing that he has more usernames than me. What? But it's fine.
Yeah. And then we did mention this in the previous, not the previous episode, the previous numbered episode.
Yeah.
That we are also part of this huge mega podcast where we all plan a Halloween Horror Nights event from the ground up, and we're involved with a lot of awesome people on that. We have Jonathan from Hung Up on Theme Parks. We have the Pew 2. We have Christy from Orlando Decoded.
We have
Two-
Doug from
so many-
Microglass. He's awesome.
Yes,
I love Doug.
check
He-
out his stuff. He does music, he does movies, he does his podcast. Like, this dude is super talented. Like, definitely give him a look, give him a listen.
Yeah.
We also have involvement with some of the guys at HHN 365.
There's a whole
I
bunch
don't-
of cool
just
people.
a bunch of awesome people.
I
and,
feel like we're like 12 and then just building from the ground up. So
Yeah.
if you guys like that kind of stuff, then go ahead and check out Hung Up on Theme Parks. He has our entire podcast there planning it. We are still in development of some of our zones and houses, but hopefully
yeah, but
we
we're getting
can
there
come up with a really full event as well.
for sure. So yeah, I think it's time for us to say good day and good night.
Yeah, for us it's a good night. I'm about to sleep and tear my bed apart.
Same here. All right, guys. See ya.
All right, good night.
Bye.